Have you ever opened your fridge, feeling proud that everything is tucked away nice and neat, fresh, safe, and ready to eat? Most of us grew up believing that the refrigerator is the best place to store just about everything. But what if I told you some of the foods you've been refrigerating for years are actually losing their flavor, their nutrients, and in some cases, becoming worse for your health? In today's video, we're uncovering 10 everyday foods that do not belong in your fridge. We'll break down why, what really happens to them in the cold, and how you should be storing them instead, to keep their taste, texture, and benefits just right. So, let's get into it. Starting with a food almost everyone has in their kitchen: potatoes. Comforting, versatile, and always there when you need them. Potatoes are a staple in meals around the world. But here's the thing. If you've been storing them in the fridge, you might be doing more harm than good. Let me explain why. When you store potatoes in the fridge, something strange starts to happen. The cold temperature causes the natural starches inside the potato to turn into sugar. Now, that might not sound like a big deal, but it actually changes the way the potato tastes and cooks. Instead of that warm, earthy flavor we all love, the potato can start to taste oddly sweet. And the texture? It can get weird, grainy, gritty, or even mushy in a way that's just off. But here's what's more concerning. When those sugar-filled potatoes are cooked at high heat, like when you bake or fry them, they can form a chemical called acrylamide. Some studies have linked acrylamide to potential health risks, including cancer. Now don't worry, eating the occasional batch of fries isn't going to hurt you. But if there's a simple way to lower the risk, why not take it? Plus, potatoes don't like moisture. And guess what? The fridge is a damp place. That moisture makes them spoil faster, get soft spots, or even start to smell a little funky. So what's the better option? Store your potatoes in a cool, dry place, like a pantry, a paper bag, or a basket tucked in a shaded corner. And here's a bonus tip. Keep them away from onions. Onions release gases that can make your potatoes sprout and go bad faster. Bottom line, skip the fridge, let your potatoes breathe, and they'll reward you with better taste, better texture, and fewer worries. Next up, tomatoes. If you've ever bitten into a tomato straight from the fridge and thought, this doesn't taste like it used to, you're not imagining things. When you put tomatoes in the refrigerator, the cold actually stops their natural ripening process. And that process? It's exactly what gives tomatoes their deep, rich, slightly sweet flavor. Without it, they turn bland. The texture becomes mealy, soft in the wrong way, and the taste just kind of disappears. But it's not just about flavor. Tomatoes are packed with lycopene, a powerful antioxidant linked to heart health and even cancer prevention. And guess what? Cold storage can reduce that too. So if you're wondering why store-bought tomatoes don't taste like the ones from Grandma's garden, this is a big reason why. They're picked early, chilled for transport, and never get to finish ripening naturally. So here's what to do. Keep your tomatoes out on the counter, at room temperature. Let them ripen the way nature intended. And here's a little trick. Store them stem side down. It slows moisture loss and helps them stay juicy longer. Now, if they're fully ripe and you won't be eating them right away, it's okay to pop them in the fridge for a day or two. Just make sure to let them come back to room temperature before using them. It'll help bring back some of that lost flavor. Tomatoes are one of life's simplest pleasures. Treat them right, and every bite will taste like sunshine. Let's talk about a kitchen essential that doesn't always get the spotlight: onions. They're the backbone of so many dishes: soups, stews, stir-fries, sauces. Even a simple sandwich gets a boost from a few thin slices. But if you've been keeping your onions in the fridge, it might be time to stop. The refrigerator is too cold and too damp for onions. They're built for dry, well-ventilated spaces, not humid environments. When you store onions in the fridge, the moisture starts to creep in. That can make them soft, slimy, or even moldy. And the texture? Instead of being crisp and firm, they turn rubbery and kind of sad. And here's another thing: onions have a strong smell. When they're in your fridge, that smell doesn't stay in the onion drawer. It spreads into everything: your butter, your fruit, even your milk. Nobody wants onion-scented coffee creamer, right? So, what's the better way? Store whole onions in a cool, dry, dark place, like a pantry shelf, a paper bag, or a basket on the counter. Just make sure there's air circulation. Oh, and keep them far away from potatoes. The gases and moisture from potatoes can cause onions to spoil faster. They're like two troublemakers that shouldn't sit together. Now, if you've already sliced or peeled an onion, the fridge is okay, but only if it's sealed up tight in an airtight container or well-wrapped. That keeps the smell in and the moisture out. So, next time you bring home a bag of onions, skip the fridge and give them the dry space they deserve. Now let's move on to something small but mighty: garlic. It's more than just flavor, it's tradition. Garlic has been passed down through generations, not just for the way it transforms food, but for the warmth, depth, and comfort it brings to a dish. But here's something you might not know: storing garlic in the fridge actually shortens its shelf life and ruins its flavor. In cold, damp environments like your refrigerator, garlic starts to sprout faster. You'll notice little green shoots poking out from the cloves. And while that doesn't make it unsafe, it does make it bitter. The fridge also encourages mold and soft spots. You might reach for a bulb only to find it squishy, discolored, or just smelling a little off. That's frustrating, especially when all you wanted was to whip up something quick and tasty. So, what's the better way? Garlic loves dry, breathable environments. Think mesh bags, open baskets, or even a ceramic garlic keeper if you have one. Keep the bulbs whole and unbroken until you're ready to use them. Once you separate the cloves, try to use them within a week for the best flavor. Now, if you've already chopped or crushed the garlic and have to refrigerate it, make sure it's sealed tightly in an airtight container. And if you're preserving garlic in oil, be careful. That must be kept in the fridge and used within a few days to avoid any risk of botulism. Bottom line: let your garlic breathe. Keep it dry, keep it whole, and it'll give your cooking that beautiful, bold flavor every time. Next up, everyone's favorite creamy green superstar: avocados. They've become a staple in so many kitchens, on toast, in salads, smoothies, or even just with a spoon. But when it comes to storing avocados, timing is everything. If you've ever put a hard avocado in the fridge, hoping it'll stay fresh, you've probably been disappointed. That's because cold temperatures actually stop the ripening process. So on the outside, it might look ready, but on the inside, still hard, rubbery, and totally lacking in flavor. Avocados ripen best at room temperature. When you leave them out on the counter, they soften naturally, and that buttery, nutty flavor we all love really comes to life. Want to speed things up? Try placing the avocado in a brown paper bag with a banana or apple. These fruits release ethylene gas, which helps the avocado ripen faster. Now, once your avocado is perfectly ripe, soft to the touch, but not mushy, that's the right time to refrigerate it. The cold will slow down further ripening and give you a day or two of extra time. Already cut it open? No problem. Sprinkle a little lemon or lime juice on the exposed flesh to slow browning, then wrap it tightly or store it in an airtight container. Avocados are delicate, but a little care goes a long way. Let them ripen on the counter, chill only when ready, and enjoy every rich, satisfying bite at its best. Now let's talk about one of the most comforting, familiar fruits out there, bananas. They're soft, sweet, full of potassium, and super easy to grab on the go. Many of us grew up eating them with breakfast or packing them in lunch boxes, so it only makes sense to want to keep them fresh for as long as possible, right? But putting bananas in the fridge, especially before they're ripe, is a mistake. Here's why. Bananas are tropical fruits. They're used to warm, sunny climates, not cold ones. When you put them in the fridge too soon, the cold air damages the fruit's cells. The peel turns dark, sometimes nearly black, while the inside stays dry, chalky, and oddly firm. It looks like it's overripe, but it feels underdone. That's what's called a chilling injury, and once it happens, the banana can't really recover. Even if you take it out of the fridge later, the damage is already done. So what's the better move? Let your bananas ripen at room temperature. Watch them go from green to yellow to those sweet spotted beauties we all know and love. Want to slow them down just a little? Try separating them from the bunch or keeping them away from other fruits like apples, which release gases that speed up ripening. Now, if your bananas are already very ripe and you know you won't finish them in time, the freezer is your best friend. Peel them first, slice them if you'd like, and freeze them in a bag. They're perfect for smoothies, baking, or even a cold snack on a hot day. Bottom line? Bananas don't belong in the fridge, at least not until they're ready for the freezer. Let them ripen naturally, and they'll reward you with that perfect sweet flavor every time. On a hot summer day, there's nothing quite like a cold slice of watermelon, juicy, refreshing, dripping down your chin. Or maybe it's a bowl of chilled cantaloupe or honeydew after dinner. Melons have always felt like a little reward, light, sweet, and easy to love. But here's the catch. If you're putting whole uncut melons in the fridge right after buying them, you're stopping them from reaching their full potential. Why? Because melons, like many fruits, continue to ripen after they're picked. That natural ripening process builds up their sweetness, their aroma, and their flavor. But once you stick a melon in the fridge too early, that process hits pause. The fruit never fully develops the way it should. And it's not just about flavor. Cold temperatures can actually mess with the texture. Watermelons can turn grainy, while cantaloupes and honeydews might become rubbery or bland. Even more surprising? Studies have shown that melons, kept at room temperature, retain more nutrients, like vitamin C and beta-carotene, which help support your immune system and overall health. So what's the right move? Leave your whole melons out on the counter to ripen naturally. Once you've sliced them open, then the fridge is your friend. Just make sure to wrap the slices tightly or store them in an airtight container and enjoy them within 3 to 4 days. So the next time you bring home a melon, don't rush it into the cold. Let it ripen slowly on the counter, and you'll taste the difference. More flavor, more nutrition, and more of that sweet, simple joy. Let's talk about something warm, familiar, and comforting. Bread. Whether it's a soft sandwich loaf, a crusty artisan sourdough, or just a piece of toast in the morning, bread has a way of making a meal feel complete. It's the smell of Sunday mornings, the taste of home. So naturally, a lot of people try to keep it fresh by storing it in the fridge. But here's the twist. Putting bread in the refrigerator actually makes it go stale faster. It might delay mold a little, yes, but the cold temperature changes the structure of the starches inside the bread. This process, called retrogradation, causes the bread to dry out and become hard or crumbly. The soft, fluffy texture turns dry and chewy, and that golden crust, it can get soggy from the fridge's moisture. So you end up with bread that's too tough on the inside and too soft or even sticky on the outside. And let's be honest, nobody wants that. So what's the better option? If you'll be eating the bread within a few days, just store it at room temperature, in a bread box, a paper bag, or even in its original packaging, as long as it's kept in a cool, dry place away from the stove or sink. Now, if you know you won't finish the loaf in time, the freezer is a much better choice than the fridge. Just slice the bread first, wrap it well, and freeze it. When you're ready for a piece, pop it straight into the toaster or oven. It'll taste almost like fresh baked. So remember, the fridge might seem like a safe bet, but for bread, it's actually the fast track to stale. Let it breathe, or freeze it, and you'll keep that soft, satisfying bite every time. Next up is something truly special. Honey. It's one of the oldest natural foods in the world, used for healing, soothing, and sweetening. Whether you stir it into tea, drizzle it over toast, or take a spoonful for a sore throat, honey feels like a gentle remedy straight from nature. So, it might surprise you to hear this. Honey should never be stored in the fridge. You might think the cold would help it last longer. But here's the thing. Honey doesn't need help. It's naturally shelf-stable and doesn't spoil when stored properly. In fact, archaeologists have found jars of honey in ancient tombs, thousands of years old, still perfectly edible. But when you put honey in the fridge, it crystallizes much faster. You've probably seen this. It turns thick, gritty, even hard, making it harder to scoop or spread. Now don't worry, it's still safe to eat. But the texture gets rough, and the flavor can lose some of its natural brightness. And honestly, it's just a hassle to melt it back every time you want to use it. There's also a small but real risk. If the lid isn't sealed tightly, moisture can sneak into the jar, and that little bit of water can actually lead to fermentation, especially in raw honey. So what's the right way to store honey? Just keep it in a cool, dry place, like your pantry or cupboard, away from direct sunlight and heat, and make sure the lid is closed tightly after each use. That's all it needs. If it does crystallize over time, no problem. Just place the jar in warm, not boiling water and stir gently. It'll return to its golden, silky state in no time. So go ahead, let your honey shine. Keep it out of the fridge, and it'll stay smooth, sweet, and ready whenever you need it. And finally, let's talk about something that's more than just a cooking ingredient. Olive oil. It's tradition. It's health. It's that smooth drizzle on a salad, the base of a homemade dressing, or the warm memory of a family meal cooked with care. But here's something a lot of people get wrong. Olive oil doesn't belong in the fridge. When you refrigerate olive oil, it gets thick, sometimes even cloudy, and may develop little white clumps. Now don't worry. It's not spoiled. It just doesn't like the cold. The problem is, repeated chilling and warming can slowly break down the flavor and freshness. Over time, that slightly peppery, fruity taste starts to fade. And if you're using a high-quality olive oil, that's a real loss. There's also a hidden risk. Refrigerating and reopening the bottle over and over again can introduce condensation. Water droplets can sneak inside, and water and oil don't mix. If that moisture sits too long, it could lead to spoilage, or even bacteria. So here's what you should do instead. Store your olive oil in a cool, dark cupboard, away from the stove, away from sunlight, and far from any heat source. That's why good olive oils often come in dark glass bottles or tins. They help protect the oil from light damage. Just make sure the cap is tightly closed after each use. And that's it. No fridge needed. Treat your olive oil well, and it'll stay fresh for months. Because it's more than just an ingredient. It's a small part of a lifestyle, bringing flavor, nourishment, and care into every dish. That wraps up our list of 10 everyday foods that don't belong in the fridge. Some of these might surprise you, but sometimes the old, simple ways really are the smartest. Let us know in the comments. Which of these are you going to take out of the fridge first? If you found this helpful, give the video a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more practical, everyday tips like this. Take care of your food, take care of your home, and most of all, take care of yourself. We'll see you in the next video.